How could a woman keep her true identity hidden from her family for 40 years? How could a Nobel nomination, university honors, published articles, all remain secret? I didn't know either, until my granddaughter saw that photo. If this story touched your soul, click subscribe and let me know in the comments which city or country you listened from. I'm genuinely curious where you watched it. I'm grateful to everyone who comments. In a quiet town in Virginia, a decades-old secret has been waiting in a dusty attic. This story shows how cruel and how redeeming the truth can be. For 42 years, I cooked healthy meals for them. I packed their lunches when they went to school. I paid their dorm fees when they went to college. I organized their weddings when they got married. I sang lullabies every night when they had children. But not once did they ask me, "Mom, what did you do with your life?" What would I have said if they had asked? I studied quantum physics at MIT. I got my PhD at Cambridge. I conducted research on particle accelerators. I was nominated for the Nobel Prize twice. I published 83 papers. I received honorary degrees from 24 universities. No, I couldn't say those things, because to them, I was just supposed to be mom. Quiet, obedient, always at home, always cooking, always helping. And I accepted that role. Until my granddaughter Emma saw that photo. Emma was 12 that day. It was science fair day at her school in Fairfax, Virginia, and her teachers had taken the children to the physics department at George Mason University. I was at home, as usual, preparing dinner. My son David and his wife Sarah were coming home from work. I was making Mason's favorite chicken pasta. At exactly 4 o'clock, the door burst open. "Grandma! Grandma!" Emma's voice was trembling. I couldn't tell if it was from fear or excitement. I ran from the kitchen. My daughter was standing at the entrance, her face bright red, her eyes teary, holding her phone. "What happened, sweetie? Are you okay?" You. The words wouldn't come out. She held the phone out to me. There was a photo on the screen. At first, I didn't understand. Then I looked at that face. A young woman from 45 years ago. Her hair was black. My hair is now completely white. The glasses were thicker. But those eyes were the same. George Mason University, Robinson Department. On the wall. Your photo is there. It says, Dr. Margaret Ellis Thompson, 1978, pioneering work in quantum mechanics. End quote. Margaret Ellis Thompson. I had left that name behind 42 years ago. When David was born, I was just Margaret Thompson, the stay-at-home mom, the quiet woman. Emma's eyes were full of questions. "Grandma, is that you? Is it really you?" How could I explain? How could I tell her why I had chosen to remain silent for all those years? Just then, the door opened. David had come home. With Sarah. "Mom, is dinner ready?" David asked as he took off his coat, then saw Emma. "Emma? Weren't you on the school bus?" "How?" Dad, look." Emma held the phone out to her father. "Grandma. Grandma was a scientist. She was a doctor. Her photo is hanging at the university." David laughed. It was such a laugh that it made my heart ache. "Emma, sweetie, it must be someone else." "Grandma. Grandma didn't even go to college, did she, Mom?" Have you ever had that moment when everyone is smiling at you and you realize they don't know anything about you? I just stood there. The dishcloth was still in my hands. What could I say? Yes, is that me? Or no, it must be a mistake. Sarah took the phone from David's hand. She looked at the screen. She frowned. Then she looked at me. Then back at the screen. Margaret Ellis Thompson. She read it slowly. Then she looked up. "Your maiden name is Ellis, isn't it?" Silence. Heavy, thick silence. There were years in that silence. There were lives kept hidden. "Yes," I said. My voice was only slightly louder than a whisper. David stopped laughing. "Mom, this isn't a joke, is it?" "No." So, is this really you?" "Yes." Emma's eyes widened. But, but how? How come you never told me? Good question. The question I've been asking myself for 42 years. Maybe I should start from the beginning. When I met David in 1976, he was an electrical engineer. I had just returned from Cambridge, having completed my doctorate. I was working on particle physics. I was very determined, full of passion. But I was also tired. The academic world was not easy for a woman, especially in the 70 seconds. David was kind, he was warm. "You're so smart," he'd say. "But it's not worth all this stress. I can protect you." Does that sound silly to you? But back then, it felt romantic, having someone protect you, feeling safe. We got married. A year later, the baby came. David was born. I took leave from my job. Just a few months, I told myself. Just a few months. A few months turned into 3 years. Then David's father, my father-in-law Howard, got sick. He had cancer. Someone had to take care of him. David was an only child. "You're already at home, Margaret," my mother-in-law Dorothy said. "You can go back to work later." But Howard lived for 2 years. I took care of him for 2 years. I took him to doctors. I gave him his medicine. I watched him die. When Howard died in 2007, I had been away from the scientific world for 8 years. 8 years. My papers were outdated. My connections were severed. Young, brilliant minds had taken my place. "Come back," my advisor said on the phone. "We'll take you back." But David was small. He was 4 years old. I couldn't send him to preschool. I had no family. My parents had died in a car accident 2 years earlier. David was busy. And I was just tired. So tired that I had no energy left to fight. Later, I told my counselor. In a few years. But later never came. As the years passed, I became more and more invisible. At family dinners, David's achievements were discussed. Sarah's promotions were celebrated. Emma's school grades were praised. Me? I would quietly serve the food. One day, in 2019 I think, we were having Thanksgiving dinner. David's friends were there too, his engineer friends. They were talking, discussing artificial intelligence. "These algorithms are based on statistical modeling," said David's friend Tom. "Actually," I said, "quantum computing could be much more efficient for these models, especially—" "Mom," David interrupted with a laugh, "we're talking technical stuff. It's hard for you to understand." Tom nodded. "Yeah, this stuff is a bit complicated." Sarah looked at me with a pitying expression. "Margaret, was there any more saucy potatoes left in the kitchen?" I got up from the table. I went to the kitchen. I cried silently, but no one noticed. Have you ever felt so invisible, like a stranger among your own family? But the worst part was Emma's science fair. It was 2 years ago. Emma was 10 years old and had prepared a small experiment about solar panels. She had set it up with Sarah. "Grandma, are you coming too?" Emma asked. "Of course, sweetie." But at the fair, while Emma was explaining her project, Sarah kept interrupting me. "Yes, we used photovoltaic cells. Sunlight turns into electrons." That was wrong. Sunlight doesn't turn into photons. Photons excite electrons. But I didn't correct her. Emma's teacher looked at me. "Did you help with the project too?" Sarah answered. "Margaret doesn't know much about technical stuff, but she makes great cakes." They laughed. I smiled too, because I was, Mom, the woman who bakes cakes, stays quiet, and always smiles. That night, in bed, I thought, how did I end up like this? How did I let go of my own voice? The answer was simple, because it was easy. Being quiet, playing a role, conforming to expectations, it was easier than fighting. But now Emma had seen the photo, and there was nowhere left to hide. There was no dinner that evening. No one had an appetite. David, Sarah, and Emma sat in the living room. After a long silence, Sarah was the first to speak. "I'll look it up on Google." She opened her phone. Dr. Margaret Ellis Thompson. Her fingers touched the screen. Then she stopped. The expression on her face changed. She turned pale. "Oh my God!" David sat down next to her. He looked at the screen. His eyes widened. "Mom, is this real?" What could I say? I couldn't lie anymore. The photo was there. The internet never forgets. "Yes," I said. "It's real." Sarah read it aloud. Dr. Margaret Ellis Thompson, 1975 MIT graduate, 1978 Cambridge PhD. Pioneering work in quantum mechanics, researcher at CERN. Visiting professor at Stanford, 83 published papers. Hanchfield Prize, 1982. Nobel nominations, 1983 and 1991. She paused. She looked at me. "Nobel Prize. Nomination?" "Twice," I said. "I didn't win. But I was nominated." David put his head in his hands. "This can't be true. This isn't you. You're just a housewife." Just a housewife. Those words had never hurt so much. "Yes," I said quietly. "That's what I am now." But why?" Emma's voice trembled. "Why didn't you ever tell me? Why did you always hide it? How could I explain it? How could I justify 40 years of silence?" "Because—" I paused. The words were hard to come by. "Because that's how you wanted me to be." "What?" David looked up. "We wanted that?" "Yes. You wanted Mom? Always ready, always quiet, always helpful. So I became that." "But that's ridiculous," Sarah said. "Why would we want you to—" "Do you really want to know?" My voice hardened. For the first time in years. "What did you say when I mentioned quantum computing to Tom last Thanksgiving, David?" Silence. "Mom, it's hard for you to understand," you said. "What did you say, Sarah, when I wanted to fix the photovoltaic cells at Emma's science fair?" Sarah looked away. "Margaret doesn't know much about technical stuff," you said. "At every family gathering, every dinner, every conversation, you quietly pushed me aside. And I let you." David stood up. He seemed angry. "That's unfair, Mom. We love you. We've always respected you." "Respect?" I laughed. A bitter laugh. "If you respected me, you would have asked once, 'Mom, what have you done in your life?' We didn't know. Because you didn't ask." Silence. Heavy, shame-filled silence. Emma was crying silently. "Grandma, I'm so sorry." I went to her. I hugged her. "It's not your fault, sweetie. You're just a child." "But I did it too," she said, crying. "Last year I told you, Grandma, you wouldn't understand. About my math homework. I remembered. It was a calculus problem. I knew the solution, but Emma didn't believe me. 'Let Sarah help me,' she had said." "You didn't know," I said again. But David was still in shock. He took his phone. He searched on Google. He looked at the screen. He looked. Then, at me. "There are hundreds of articles here. Hundreds. All with your name. Particle physics, quantum mechanics, theoretical physics. Mom, are you a genius?" "No," I said. "I was just a very hard-working scientist." "But why? Why did you give up everything?" Good question. The hardest question. I sat down. I took a deep breath. "Because I was tired," I said. "Being a female scientist in the 1970 seconds wasn't easy. Every day was a struggle. Every day you had to prove yourself. At every conference, every meeting, you were looked down upon. They didn't say outright, 'Women can't do science.' But their behavior said it. Their looks said it." I paused. Memories came flooding back. Painful memories. Once, I was giving a presentation at CERN. Years of work. A tremendous discovery. When I finished, a male professor stood up. "Did you really do this work?" he asked. "Or did your advisor?" Sarah's mouth opened. "What did you say?" I didn't say anything. Because whatever I said, he wouldn't have believed me. So I just showed him my documents. But that look, that suspicious look, I'll never forget it, Emma asked, choking back tears. And then you left? No. Then your father was born. And I saw an opportunity. Motherhood. Love. Appreciation. Things I hadn't found in the academic world. So I told myself, just a few years. But a few years turned into 40. David sat down, his head was bowed. Mom, I'm so sorry, I didn't know. You didn't need to know, I said. You were little. But after you grew up, you never wondered. None of you did. Sarah was crying now. Margaret, I realize now what a terrible person I am. Emma at the science fair, you. It's over, I said. But it wasn't over. The pain was still fresh. Emma picked up the phone. Grandma, I have a question. It says here, Dr. Thompson conducted research on dark matter. What does that mean? I smiled. It was the first time that evening I had truly smiled. Dark matter makes up 85% of the universe, but we can't see it. We can only measure its gravitational effects. Wow. Emma's eyes lit up. That's amazing. Tell me more. And I explained. For an hour. My work, my discoveries, my theories. Emma asked questions. Smart questions. And I answered. David and Sarah listened quietly. Maybe for the first time they were really hearing me. That night, after everyone had gone to sleep, I went up to the attic. There was a closet there, locked. The key was only with me. I opened it. Inside were boxes. Dusty, old boxes. Diplomas. A bachelor's degree from MIT, 1,975. A doctorate from Cambridge, 1,978. An honorary degree from Stanford, 1,984. Photos. At CERN, in front of the giant particle accelerator. In Cambridge, with my advisor. In Stockholm, during the Nobel ceremony. I was a nominee. Articles, 83 of them, all under my name. Some have been cited hundreds of times. Awards. Hanchfield Prize, 1,982. American Physical Society Fellowship, 1,981. Many more. Letters. From Cambridge, Stanford, CERN. Come back, Margaret. We're waiting for you. But I hadn't returned. I sat there, among the boxes, and for the first time in 40 years I cried, bitterly, for the lost years, for the hidden life, for the forgotten Margaret Ellis Thompson. Have you ever lost yourself while crying? With the first light of dawn, David went up to the roof. He found me among the cardboard boxes. Mom. I looked at him. My eyes were red. We did this to you, he said quietly. Didn't we? I didn't answer. But my silence was enough. David sat down beside me. He looked at one of the photos. Young Margaret, smiling in front of CERN. You look very happy in this photo. I was. And with us, didn't we make you happy? A difficult question. I love you, David, I always have. But, yes, a part of me was always unhappy. The lost side. He cried there. A 40-year-old man, crying beside his mother. I'm sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry. I hugged him. I know. The next morning, Emma didn't go to school. I'm sick, she told Sarah. But she wasn't really sick. She was curious. She sat with me in the attic, rummaging through the boxes. Grandma, where was this photo taken? At CERN, in Switzerland. The world's largest particle accelerator is there. Did you work there? 3 years. From 1979 to 1982. Emma found another photo. A crowded conference hall. On stage, I'm speaking at the podium. What's this? Stockholm. 1983. The symposium after the Nobel ceremony. I gave a speech because I was a nominee. What did you talk about? Quantum entanglement. 2 particles remaining connected despite the distance between them in space. Einstein called this spooky action at a distance. Emma's face lit up with admiration. Have you ever seen a look like that? The moment someone looks at you with genuine admiration? You're amazing, Grandma. I smiled. I was just curious, just like you. Emma opened another box. Letters spilled out. Dozens of letters. What are these? Invitations, conferences, symposiums, universities. They all want me back. Wanted me back. The top letter was dated 2018, from Stanford. Dear Dr. Thompson, we would be delighted to have you as a visiting faculty member on our campus. Why didn't you go? Because you were 7 years old at the time, and Sarah and David said someone needed to pick you up from school, so I volunteered. Emma's eyes filled with tears. Was it because of me? No, sweetie, you were the excuse. The real reason was my cowardice, going back after 40 years. It was terrifying. That afternoon, Sarah came home early from work. She had a laptop in her hand. Margaret, I found something. The university's website. Your photo isn't just on the wall. You're on the honor roll, too. She opened the laptop. George Mason University, Physics Department, Distinguished Alumni page. There, at the top, was my photo. They never forgot you, Sarah said quietly. Even if you forget yourself. David came home with a surprise that evening. He had a thick folder in his hand. What's this? I found it at the university library. Some of your published articles. A friend of mine who's a biology professor helped me. I opened the file. The articles were there. They felt like old friends. My hands trembled. I remembered this paper. I had written it in the lab at Cambridge, staying up all night. My advisor had said, "This is Nobel material." It didn't win, but it came very close. Can you still read this? David asked. I mean, do you understand it? I smiled. The laws of physics haven't changed, David. My memory might be a bit rusty, but the fundamental knowledge is still there. Emma jumped up excitedly. Can you read it to us, please? And I read it, out loud, skipping the mathematical equations, explaining it in simple terms. Emma listened, asked questions. David and Sarah listened too. Maybe they didn't understand, but they were trying. That night, before going to bed, Sarah came to my room. Her eyes were red. Margaret, I'm so sorry. At Emma's science fair, at Thanksgiving, everywhere. I underestimated you. And I know there's no excuse for that. Sarah. No, let me finish. I guess I was jealous. You always seemed calm, always prepared, always perfect. And I never felt good enough. So I felt better by looking down on you. But now I realize how awful that was. I held her hand. We can't change the past, Sarah, but we can change the future. She cried that night, for a long time, and I held her, because in a family, forgiveness is more important than forgetting. The next morning, Emma went to school, but she didn't just go to school. She also told her teacher, her physics teacher, Mr. Richardson. Mr. Richardson listened. He was surprised. Then he searched on Google, and he was shocked. Emma, is your grandmother really Dr. Margaret Thompson? The famous Dr. Thompson? Yes, but no one knew. Mr. Richardson smiled. Do you know what we're going to do? That afternoon, Mr. Richardson called me. Dr. Thompson, I'm James Richardson, Emma's physics teacher. Can I speak with you? Of course. But please just call me Margaret. I last used the doctor title 40 years ago. No, ma'am, I mean, Dr. Thompson, you're a legend. I read your articles in college. When I took the high-energy particle dynamics course, my professor talked about your work. I was surprised. Really? Yes, are you still active? I mean, are you still doing research? No, I haven't done that in 40 years. Silence on the phone. Then, well, can I ask you a favor? What kind of favor? Would you give a talk at our school? To the students? You would inspire them, especially the girls. Seeing a female scientist is very important for them. I hesitated. I'm not sure. It's been a long time. Please, just 1 hour. Tell your life story. That would be enough. Emma was standing next to me. She looked at me with pleading eyes. Please, Grandma, please. How could I say no? The talk was a week later. Fairfax High School, in the large conference hall. I thought it would be like a teacher's talk, with 10 or 15 students, but when I walked into the hall, there were 200 students, maybe more. The hall was packed. "Dr. Thompson," said Mr. Richardson, "come, let me introduce you." I stepped onto the stage. My legs were shaking. I hadn't been on stage in 40 years. Have you ever experienced such fear? I approached the microphone. The students looked at me. Eyes, hundreds of eyes. "Hello?" I said. My voice trembled. "I'm Margaret, and I'm going to tell you a story. The story of a lost woman." I told it. Everything. MIT, Cambridge, CERN, the Nobel nominations, then the marriage, David, motherhood, the silence, the hiding, the years of being belittled. And 40 years later, my granddaughter's discovery. When I finished, there was silence. The entire hall. Then a student stood up. They clapped. Then another. Then another. They clapped for 2 minutes. Standing. Emma was in the front row, crying and clapping. Then the questions came. "Dr. Thompson, what's it like to be a female scientist now?" "It's still hard," I said honestly, "but better than the 1,970 seconds. Know that the battle is still being fought, but you are needed. Support your female friends. Respect your female professors." "Why didn't you come back?" "Out of fear. Ordinary fear. I was afraid of failing, of no longer being good enough, of not keeping up with the changing world. But now I understand. Fear is better than regret." "So what will you do now?" Good question. What would I do after 40 years? After the talk, a woman approached me. She was in her 40s, dressed in a suit, looking professional. "Dr. Thompson, I'm Dr. Linda Chen, chair of the physics department at George Mason University." I was surprised. "Oh, hello. I heard your talk. Mr. Richardson invited me." "Dr. Thompson, I'd like to talk to you about something." An hour later in her office over coffee, she explained, "Our university is launching a new program called Women in Science. It's about being role models and mentors for young female students, and we need you." I've been away from academia for 40 years. "It doesn't matter. You're an inspiration. Your story is an inspiration. Come for a term. Be a visiting professor. Give talks, mentor. You don't have to do active research. Just be there." I hesitated. "How long?" "1 term. 3 months. If you don't like it, there's no obligation." David and Sarah were waiting in the office. I asked them, "What do you think?" David smiled. For the first time, I saw pride in his eyes. "Mom, you should do it." "You absolutely should." Sarah nodded. "Margaret, this is your moment. You've waited 40 years. Now it's your time." Emma jumped in. "Yes, my grandmother will be a professor." Dr. Chen extended his hand. "Well?" I shook his hand. 40 years later, for the first time, I accept. When the news broke, the media took notice. The local newspaper published an article, "The Return of the Lost Genius." 5-year-old physicist returns to academia after 40 years. Then the Washington Post picked up the story, then the New York Times, then CNN. "Dr. Margaret Thompson's story is a lesson for us all," said the CNN anchor. "It's never too late. Nothing is ever lost." Interview requests came in. Too many? I turned most of them down, but I accepted one. NPR, National Public Radio. It was a calm, thoughtful interview. "Dr. Thompson, why did you stay silent for 40 years?" "Because society told me to be silent. Because my family wanted a silent woman, and I was tired of fighting." "Do you regret it?" I paused. A difficult question. Yes and no. Raising my son brought me joy. Seeing my grandchildren is wonderful. But yes, I regret missing out on those discoveries, those conferences, that life. What advice would you give to young women? Never lose your voice, never. If society tries to silence you, speak louder. Don't lose yourself for someone else. Because finding yourself might take 40 years. Do you hear this advice? Never lose your voice. Never. My first day at university felt strange. I walked around campus. Students passed by me, young, energetic, their lives ahead of them. I used to be like that too. My office was small but sufficient. I could see the campus from the window. On the desk was a computer, a few books, and a photo. Emma and me in the conference hall, after the applause. Dr. Chen knocked on the door. Are you ready, Dr. Thompson? Your first class is in an hour. My first class. 50 years later, my heart was racing. I'm ready. There were 30 students in the class, mostly girls. They looked at me with young, hopeful, curious eyes. Hello, I said. I'm Dr. Margaret Thompson, and I won't be teaching you quantum physics. They were surprised. But I will teach you something. Never give up, never be silenced, and never, ever lose yourself. Then I turned to the blackboard. I picked up the chalk, and I wrote an equation. This is the Schrödinger wave equation, I said. The equation at the heart of our understanding of the universe. And there's a lesson about life here. Waves ripple, they ebb and flow. Sometimes they disappear, but they never truly end. They just transform into a different form. A girl raised her hand. Dr. Thompson, you were gone, but now you're back, like a wave. I smiled. Yes, dear, just like a wave. A month later, a letter arrived, a thick, official envelope, from Stanford University. I opened it. Inside was an invitation. Stanford University Honorary Degree Ceremony. Dr. Margaret Ellis Thompson awarded honorary doctorate for contributions to physics. I cried. There, in the office, I cried quietly, because after 40 years, someone still remembered. My whole family came to the ceremony. David, Sarah, Emma, little Mason, all dressed in suits, proud. The Stanford campus was magnificent. Old buildings, wide lawns, California sunshine. 8 people were receiving honorary doctorates at the ceremony. A heart surgeon, a writer, a film director, a musician, and me, the lost physicist. When I stepped onto the stage, applause filled the hall. The chancellor approached the microphone. Dr. Margaret Ellis Thompson pioneered work in quantum mechanics in the 1970 seconds. She conducted research at CERN, Cambridge, and Stanford. She was nominated for the Nobel Prize twice. She published 83 articles. Then, she disappeared. For 40 years. But a lost treasure is still a treasure. And today, we welcome her back into the ranks of science. The diploma was awarded. Photos were taken. The applause continued. Then, it was time for the speech. I approached the microphone. I looked out at the hall. Thousands of people. Professors, students, families. And Emma. In the front row, her eyes were shining. Thank you, I said. This honor is unexpected, because I am not a successful scientist. I am a scientist who ran away. Silence. 40 years ago, I was afraid. I was afraid of society, of expectations, of struggle. So I ran away. I hid at home. I took on the role of mother, and I lost myself. I paused. Tears came, but I didn't stop them. But my granddaughter Emma found me in a photograph. And that photograph changed everything. Because Emma asked me a question. Grandma, why didn't you ever tell me? Emma was crying now. And the answer is simple. Because no one asked. For 40 years, no one said, Margaret, who are you? What did you do? What did you want to be? They only asked, Mom, is dinner ready? I smiled. A bitter smile. But it's my fault too, because I allowed it. I allowed myself to lose my voice. So today, I want to say this to young people. Never lose your voice. Not for anyone. Not for anything. Because your voice is you. And if you lose it, you lose yourself. Applause. Standing ovation, 5 minutes. When I stepped off the stage, Emma ran over. She hugged me. Grandma, you're the most amazing person. No, sweetie, you're amazing. You found me. You saved me. That year, I continued teaching at George Mason. Quantum mechanics, particle physics, women, and science. My classes were full. One day, after class, a student came up to me, a shy, young Latina girl. Dr. Thompson, I'm Maria. Can I ask you something? Of course. I want to study physics, but my family is against it. They say, girls don't study science. They say, become a teacher, become a nurse. What should I do? I looked at her. I saw my younger self in her eyes. Maria, I can offer you two options. First, listen to your family. Be quiet. Give up on yourself. Regret it 40 years from now. Second, make your voice heard. Fight. Study physics. And don't give up for anyone. But my family. Families may not understand, but they will in time. I explained it to my son 40 years later. He's proud now. Your family will be proud too. But first, you must be proud of yourself. Maria cried. Then she smiled. Thank you, Dr. Thompson. I'll study physics. 3 years later, Maria was accepted into MIT. She excitedly told me the news. Dr. Thompson, I did it, and I owe it all to you. Have you ever experienced such a moment? A moment when you changed someone's life? That was my reward. Not a Nobel Prize, but something far more valuable. Emma changed too. She excelled in physics. She graduated at the top of her class. And then, one day, she brought me a letter. Grandma, look! An acceptance letter from MIT. Full scholarship. Emma, congratulations. Because of you, Grandma. You inspired me. You showed me that women can do anything. We hugged. For a long time. And in that moment I understood. Those lost 40 years weren't wasted. Because if they inspired Emma, they were worth it. David changed too. He spoke to me differently now. With respect. With curiosity. Mom, I have a question. Your work at CERN. The particle accelerators. How do they work? And I explained. For hours. David listened. He really listened. One day he said to me, Mom, I'm sorry for not seeing you all those years. You were always there, but I didn't look. It's okay, David. No, it's not over. I lost you. 40 years. My real mother was gone, and I didn't notice. But now I've got you back, and I won't lose you again. We both cried. Not father and son, but mother and son, the real bond. 3 years passed. In 2028, I was 78 years old. I was still teaching. I was still inspiring. One day, a famous visitor came. From Stockholm. A representative from the Nobel Committee. Dr. Thompson, may I speak with you? We sat in my office. The representative, an elderly man, looked at me with a serious expression. Dr. Thompson, you were nominated for the Nobel Prize in Physics in 1983. You didn't win. You were nominated again in 1991. You didn't win again. I know, I said. Old pains resurfaced. But the committee never forgot your work. Your research on quantum entanglement laid the foundation for today's quantum computers. Your contribution was immense. Thank you. That's why the committee made a decision. A very rare decision. A special honorary award. Not a Nobel, but just as valuable. For you and other scientists like you who have been overlooked, called unforgettable contributions. I froze. Are you joking? No, sir. The ceremony is in December, in Stockholm. Will you accept it? I cried. A proud woman of 78, crying in her office. Yes, I accept. December 2028. Stockholm. It was snowing. The ceremony was at the concert hall. The king and queen were there, hundreds of scientists, and my family. David, Sarah, Emma, who came from MIT, Mason. When I stepped onto the stage, emotions overwhelmed me. 45 years, exactly 45 years later, I had returned to Stockholm. The award was presented. A gold medal, a crystal statue, a certificate of honor. To Dr. Margaret Ellis Thompson, said the committee chair, for her contributions to science, her inspiration, and most importantly, for never giving up. Applause. Standing ovation. It was my turn to speak. My final speech. Perhaps the most important one. Your Majesty, Your Highness, distinguished guests, I said. I am fortunate to be here today, but not to be alive. I am fortunate to be seen. I paused. I looked around the hall. 45 years ago, I was here. I was a Nobel nominee. I didn't win. Then, I went home and disappeared. 40 years. But I'm not the only one who disappeared. Thousands of women scientists, thousands of geniuses were buried in silence. They raised children, ran households, and hid their genius. Emma was crying in the front row. This award isn't just for me. This award is for those lost women, for those silent geniuses, for those who were never seen. And a message to future generations: don't disappear anymore. Don't stay silent anymore. You have a voice. Use it. Applause filled the hall. 5 minutes. 10 minutes. When I stepped off the stage, Emma ran up and hugged me. Grandma, you're the most amazing woman. No, sweetie. I'm just lucky. Because you found me. 2033. Emma graduated from MIT. She earned a PhD in physics. Now she works at CERN. She researches quantum computers. I'm 83 years old. I still teach at George Mason. Part-time now. But one class every semester. Because I can't stop. If I stop, I might get lost again. Today is a special day. Emma came from CERN. There's big news. Grandma, she said excitedly, I published a paper in Nature magazine, and I added you as a co-author because your 1981 work formed the basis of my research. She held the article in her hand. My eyes welled up. Emma, I didn't do anything in this study. You did, Grandma. You inspired me. You showed me the way. And most importantly, you taught me that women's voices must not be lost. We embraced. 2 generations of women scientists, lost and found. That evening there was a family dinner. But this time it was different. David was cooking in the kitchen. Mom, sit down. I'm doing it today. Sarah was setting the table. Mason, now 16, was doing his physics homework. Grandma, this momentum problem. Can you help? Of course, sweetie. Emma was working on her laptop, but she turned to me and smiled. Grandma, they're inviting you to CERN next year, as a guest speaker. Will you accept? CERN. 45 years later. Yes, I said. Absolutely yes. David called from the kitchen. Mom, I couldn't find the ingredient listed in this recipe. Can I use one of your old recipes? Of course, David. In the top drawer, in the blue folder. But David opened the wrong drawer. The locked one. I still had the key, but the lock was old. It opened. Mom, what's this? I got up. I went over. There were still a few boxes inside. Unopened boxes. What are these? Sarah asked. I opened a box. Letters spilled out. Hundreds of letters. Never opened. These are. I paused. I remembered. These are letters from my students. From Cambridge, MIT, Stanford. They sent them 40 years ago. But I never opened them. Because it was too painful. Emma took a letter. The envelope said 1985. She opened it. Dear Dr. Thompson, you were my best professor. You didn't just teach me physics, you taught me to believe in myself. I'm doing my PhD now, and I thank you every day. Why are you silent? Why don't you come back? The scientific world needs you. Sincerely, Jennifer Wu, MIT, 84. Emma opened another letter. It was dated 1992. Dr. Thompson, 20 years ago, I was your student. Now, I am a professor at Harvard, and I always talk about you to my own students. Being a woman scientist is difficult, but you showed us that it is possible. Please come back. Please. Linda Morrison, Harvard Physics Department. Hundreds of letters, They all said the same thing. Come back. We miss you. We need you. But I hadn't opened them. For 40 years. Why didn't you open them, Grandma? Mason asked quietly. Because I was afraid. If I read them, I'd have to come back. And I wasn't ready. David sat down beside me. Mom, are you ready now? I smiled. Yes, I'm ready now. Because I'm not afraid anymore. I'm not lost anymore. That night, we read the letters until late. The whole family. Hundreds of letters. From students, colleagues, universities. Each one was a story. Each one was a thank you, a longing, an invitation. Emma opened her laptop. Grandma, let's find these people. Let's search for them on Google. And we found them. Jennifer Wu, professor at MIT, quantum optics expert. Linda Morrison, department chair at Harvard. Robert Steinberg, Nobel Prize winner, 2015. In his letter he wrote, You were my first source of inspiration. Grandma, Emma said, these people haven't forgotten you. They're all successful, and they all remember you. David suggested an idea. Mom, why don't you respond to them? Even if it's been 40 years. But what will I write? Write the truth. Why you left. Why you came back. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat at the computer, and I started writing. Dear students, 40 years ago, I left you, quietly, without explanation. Many of you wrote letters. You wanted me to come back, but I didn't even read them, because I was afraid. Being a female scientist in the 1970 seconds wasn't easy. Every day was a struggle, every day proving myself, and I got tired. I became a mother, and I lost myself. But now I'm back, even if it's too late, and I want to tell you this. Never give up, never be silenced, and if you get lost, don't be afraid to come back, because science is waiting for you, your students are waiting for you, and the world doesn't need silence, it needs voices that are heard. With love, Dr. Margaret Ellis Thompson. I sent the email. To hundreds of people, to those on the list, those off the list, to everyone. A week later, the responses started coming in. From Jennifer Wu. Dr. Thompson, I cried when I received your letter. 40 years have passed, but I never forgot you. I always tell my students at MIT your story. And now, your return has become their greatest source of inspiration. Thank you for everything. From Linda Morrison. Margaret, may I call you that now? Your letter warmed my heart. I knew you would return one day, because geniuses don't disappear, they just sleep. And you've awakened. Welcome back. From Robert Steinberg. Dr. Thompson, when I won the Nobel Prize in 2015, I mentioned you in my acceptance speech. My inspiration was a female professor, Dr. Margaret Thompson. I don't know where she is, but I hope she's watching. Were you watching? No, I wasn't watching, because I was lost at the time, but now I knew. June 2034, Emma and I went to CERN, near Geneva, Switzerland, for the first time in 42 years. CERN had changed. Technology had advanced. The buildings had been renovated, but the Large Particle Accelerator, the Large Hadron Collider, was still there. Huge, magnificent, the heart of science. Grandma, look! Emma pointed. A huge poster on the wall. This is a diagram from your 1981 paper. It really was. The diagram I had drawn, enlarged, hung on the wall at CERN. A scientist approached. Middle-aged, bald, wearing glasses. Dr. Thompson? I'm Dr. Klaus Werner, director of CERN. Welcome. We've been expecting you. He led me into a huge hall. Hundreds of scientists were there. There was a conference. Dr. Thompson, we've prepared a special session for you. It's called Quantum Pioneers. For you and other lost scientists like you. When I stepped onto the stage, applause erupted from the hall. Long applause. Dr. Margaret Ellis Thompson, Klaus said into the microphone, conducted research at CERN from 1979 to 1982. Quantum entanglement, particle dynamics. Her work laid the foundation for today's discovery of the Higgs boson. Then she disappeared, but science did not forget her. Welcome back, Margaret. I gave a speech. I talked about my past, my fears, my losses, my transformation. Science is a family, I said. And families don't forget each other. Even though I was lost for 40 years, you didn't forget me. Thank you. To all of you. Applause. Then a young scientist stood up. Dr. Thompson? A question. What advice do you have for young female scientists? How can we avoid disappearing? Good question, I said. First, never lose your voice. No one can tell you to be quiet. Second, you need mentors. Find strong women. Connect with them. Third, believe in yourself, even if the world doesn't believe in you. Another question. What if we do get lost? Is it ever too late to come back? I smiled. No, it's never too late. I'm 84 years old and I'm still teaching, still inspiring. There's no such thing as too late. After the CERN visit, Emma took me to a special place, a warehouse-like building. Inside were old computers, notes, documents. Grandma, I found something in the archive. She led me to a table. There was an old file on it. It read, M.E. Thompson, 1981, confidential. What's this? Open it and see. I opened it. Inside were notes, my handwriting, equations, calculations, and at the top, a title, Dark Matter Theory, Early Studies. I froze. I had forgotten about this. Grandma, this work is very important. You were working on dark matter in 1981, but it was never published. I flipped through the pages. I tried to remember. Then I remembered. Yes, I was working on it. But then David was born, and I had to stop. Emma looked at me excitedly. Grandma, this theory is very relevant now. Modern dark matter research is based on your foundations. Didn't you know that? No, I never published it. I never shared it. But your notes are here, in the CERN archives, and Klaus says we can publish it under your name, even if it's 43 years late. My eyes welled up. Really? Yes, and I can help. We'll update it with modern notation, but the foundation is yours. The story is yours. That day, in that warehouse, I rediscovered the 43-year-old lost work, and I understood. Nothing is lost. It's just waiting. March 2035. An article was published in Physical Review Letters. The article caused a sensation. The scientific community was shocked. Dr. Thompson predicted the dark matter theory in 1981. The lost work is revolutionizing the foundations of modern physics. Another woman buried in history. Nature magazine featured it as a cover story. Rediscovered Science. Dr. Thompson's lost paper. CNN, BBC, the New York Times all covered the story. But most importantly, young female scientists responded. Thousands of emails, messages, and letters poured in. Dr. Thompson, you are my hero. Thank you for never giving up. I was lost too. I gave up my career while raising 2 children. But you gave me hope. I can come back. My mother was also a scientist, but she left in the 1960 seconds. I want to honor her name with yours. Reading these emails, I realized I didn't just come back for myself. I came back for thousands of lost women. May 2036. I turned 85. I was getting tired, but I wanted to give one last lecture. George Mason University, in the large conference hall, a special lecture titled Lost and Found, The Story of a Scientist. The hall was packed. Students, professors, the press, families, everyone was there. I stepped onto the stage. For the last time, perhaps. Hello, I said. I am Dr. Margaret Thompson, and this is my final lecture. Silence. I am 85 years old. I am tired, but I am happy, because I am the woman who was lost and found, and I want to tell you one last story. I told it. Everything. starting with MIT, Cambridge, CERN, Nobel nominations, then marriage, motherhood, disappearance, 40 years of silence, and then Emma's discovery. But the story doesn't end here, I said. Because the story isn't just mine. It's the story of thousands of women. Lost, forgotten, buried women. And I'm giving this lecture for them. I projected a list onto the screen. Forgotten women scientists. Rosalind Franklin. She discovered the structure of DNA, but didn't receive the Nobel Prize. Lise Meitner explained nuclear fission, but the prize went to men. Qian Wu revolutionized particle physics, but the Nobel went to men again. Jocelyn Bell Burnell. She discovered pulsars, but the Nobel went to her advisor. And thousands more, I said. Nameless, silent, lost women. I'm here for them too. Emma was crying in the front row. But the future will be different, I continued. Because you are different. Young women, you will no longer be silenced. You will no longer lose yourselves. Because you know history. And those who know history do not repeat it.